Alright, here we go. 3, 2... Hey everyone, what's up? It's Babylonius from WtW here with another live Twitch Q&A session. So far not a ton of questions, but hopefully we'll get some more as we go on. And I'm also in the process of helping out our alt raid on my main because I don't really have any alts. So if things are a little bit delayed or I am talking about Oh! I almost ran right into bad guys. Where the hell did they go? I don't know. Alright. So, the first question we've got is from Storm Area 1. Stormeria 1. And he or she said, "Hi, I'm new to Monk this expansion. My DPS starts strong but goes down over time on longer bosses. What am I doing wrong?" It's difficult to say based on that amount of information if you're doing anything wrong. It really depends on if, I mean, you could be doing wrong and still see that happen. Windwalkers do see quite a lot of burst up front. Used to be even more when we were using Serenity, but it's not quite as pronounced now. But we do still see a lot of burst off the bat, and then it goes down over time. So that could be normal. It could be because over time some of your other mistakes are starting to stack up. And by stack up, I mean if you delaying or if you use a cooldown in one spot that's wrong, then it could affect you later on. So it's hard to say. The best bet in terms of understanding what you're doing wrong is to get your logs and on really any fight, and you can take them and upload them to checkmywow.com. It's a website done by a guy named Epona, who I've worked with over the past couple months to make sure that the Windwalker part of it is working very well. So you can upload your logs. It'll tell you if you've missed cast. It'll tell you if you drop hit combo, stuff like that. So that kind of tells you anything that you might need to know, or at least things that you're going to improve upon. And even the best people, the best players can go on checkmywow.com and be depressed about all the stuff that they missed out. I mean, I know I try not to because it makes me upset. Of what might have been had I used my cooldowns correctly, and not left, like Botanist I did just a little bit ago, not use spinning crane kick at the wrong time, so I had no chi for Fists of Fury and stuff. That's what happens when you're trying to stream and talk to people and all that stuff. So my recommendation is to start with checkmywow.com, and that will tell you, really if you're missing anything in particular. So. Someone, Marim, said, just got on, where can I find this video you speak of? I did upload it to YouTube, so hopefully it should be on YouTube in a couple minutes. It is also highlighted on Twitch, so you can find that under my highlighted stuff. And it was, for anyone who's listening and stuff, it was a video about it was about my UI and kind of the process I use and the priorities I use with my UI. What I feel is important and all that stuff when I created my UIs. So Storm Area had another question. Said also item level. I have rings that are much higher in item level, but reduced by master by up to 5%. The agility on them is 200 plus though. Which do I worry about more? Well, I can tell you that some part of that doesn't make sense, since you did say it's 2 o'clock, because there is no agility on rings. But in general, even in rings, item level is kind of the safe bet. In rings, if it's within 5, 10, maybe even 15 item levels, then you can then you probably should just sim them. And there's a guide for how to sim things on walkingthewind.com, as there's a guide for everything else on walkingthewind.com. That's going to be your best bet in terms of when they're close. Because of the huge amount of stat gain that can happen between item levels, that's why I say typically item level wins out in many situations, especially for other slots that have agility. Once you start adding agility into the mix, then you start really seeing item level take a very important role. And for anyone who is listening and watching my stream, you'll notice that I'm leaving Fist of Fury on cooldown, or off of cooldown for quite a while, because we're on Tichondrius and I want to stack up some transfer the power for the little bloods. So I should be able to stand here and take most of this. Alright, so next question. Another one from Storm Area. I was told that 40% mastery is a major goal, but I've seen monks who don't hit 40% but are doing really well. That's a very popular question, as I dropped my hit combo because I wasn't paying attention. It's a very popular question. We get a lot on Discord, questions about, stuff like, ooh, I think I just breathed the entire melee. I have X amount of stats, is that good, is that bad? And really, it's difficult to say. There are so many other things at play that it's hard to say that your stats are correct or are not correct. There should be a balance between all stats. You don't want to just stack one stat more than anything else. So it's kind of difficult to say that your stats may be messed up with semi-limited information. 40% tends to be not necessarily a point that people are dropping it. There is not a break point or a cap or anything at 40%, but that is just kind of with our current item level, the point at which people start to see that versatility and other specs, or I'm sorry, other stats start pulling ahead, or even with mastery. Because if you have 40% mastery, then you probably have a lot of other. You may be missing a lot of other stats. So that's really what's important. I did do a podcast about stats and how stat balance matters and stuff like that a couple weeks ago. So if you get a chance, I would recommend checking that out. That could be something that is very useful because it really is. It's less about the amount that you're at and more about the gap between what you're at with one stat and the other. As one stat goes up, it makes the others equally important, if not more important, just because of if you get more haste, then that's more abilities, but it's more abilities that do hit harder. So then you start to see some interplay between the stats. So let me not die on Tichondrius. Alright, so next is there a link to my weak ores. I covered this before the video, but yes, there's a link to my weak ores on walkthewind.com under the authors tab, which is in the top left. It's got a link to my UI that I use, my LVUI profile, as well as my weak ores that I use. So check it out if that's what you're looking for. Hey, I didn't wipe us on Tichondrius because I wasn't paying attention. So I'll follow up with Storm Area. But Storm Area said, the stat differentiation for me seems huge. Mastery is at 35%, but versus at 3. It's hard to look at specifically the percentages because the percentages are going to be different for different stats. Mastery, for example, I'll pull up my character. Mastery, you start with a 10% base, whereas versatility, you start with a 0. So what's important is the gap. If you look at my character right now, my character has 10,000 mastery to 900 versatility. So I probably should be eating verse food. I probably should have versatility gems and enchants and stuff on. It's a 10,000 point gap, or nearly 10,000 points between stats, is pretty much always going to result in the lower stat being slightly more valued. I mean, that's a pretty big gap. So it matters less about the percentages and more about the actual stat numbers. So let's see, we had another question up. Prior to the event, commented back from on my UI, when I was talking about UIs, he said, by playing an undead monk and using a default UI, am I doing everything wrong? I won't say everything. The default UI can certainly get you places, and if you play well with it, then, who am I to say? I do know that there are, I have seen people who have, parsed in the top 5% who are pretty much using entirely the default UI. So that's totally reasonable. Playing Undead Monk, I think that's probably your own personal shortcoming. Since all monks really should be panda. That's, they're the one true monk race, and everyone knows that those are my thoughts on the matter. So I don't try to hide my preference, my ethnocentrism, wherever you want to call it, for Pandaren being monks. But if you like playing undead or something, then, I don't understand it, but I'm not going to say anything bad about you, except that I don't understand your choices. So you're not doing everything wrong, but enough wrong that you probably should question a lot of other major life decisions, probably. Next is, again, from prior to the event. Should draught or draft, everybody pronounces it differently, should draft of souls be used on cooldown? That's, again, a very popular question that we get, because people are picking it up. It tends to have, it's the highest base item level. So if you listened to my podcast about item level and trinkets and stuff, and people commenting about things are either basically the best or the worst, Draught of Souls, because it has the highest based item level, has kind of the most likely chance of being an upgrade over whatever you have currently equipped. So Draught of Souls, for anyone who doesn't know, is a trinket from Gul'dan. It causes you to go into some kind of fell crazed rage, or I think the buff is called and the damage is called, where you just kind of swipe away at the target. It is a single target trinket. It has haste on it, which is less than optimal, but you'll live with some haste, and it's got just a lot of other stuff, a lot of damage. So from my understanding, and I don't have Draught to play around with, but from the testing that I've done and the math that I've done, you want to use Draught or draft as close to on cooldown as possible, but you don't want to delay other things. It does less damage per second than most other things, so you don't want to kind of go out of your way. You don't want to be delaying Fist of Fury for it, and stuff like that. So it becomes very easy to do so. So I haven't looked in super depth about which abilities, but I do know that when you're talking about on the pull, you do want to kind of prefer to use it before Storm, Earth, and Fire. It does not benefit from Storm, Earth, and Fire, but it does do enough damage per second that you want to use it after Touch of Death. So you want to try and couple it with Touch of Death. I think it has kind of a different cooldown, so it won't happen all the time. But if it is up, you want to use Touch of Death, then Draught, and then... but you don't need to worry about using Storm, Earth, and Fire, because you don't really want to use Storm, Earth, and Fire with it, because then you're just wasting 4 seconds of Storm, Earth, and Fire time. So yes, like pretty much everything else, Draught should be used as close to cooldown as possible, because that way you get the most benefit for it. But you want to try to avoid delaying anything else. So next question comes from Rydal with 3 L's. And they're watching my stream. So he said, when you're applying spinning crane kick debuff manually, not with Storm, Earth, and Fire, rushing Jade Wind, righteous. The pally comes out every once in a while. Do you tab click or other things to do it? Usually get epic and legendary parses, but feel like that's the weakest part of my play. It's definitely the weakest part of my play as well. I can agree with you. It's something that I've worked on quite a lot, at least as much as I can, and it's something that the other monk in my guild is much better at. in terms of choosing how to AoE. I always seem to choose wrong, and he always seems to choose right. So on single target, I'm a little bit better, but he beats me on AoE. I personally just click with my mouse. Tab targeting worked for a while and now is wonky. There are ways of fixing it, but I just haven't gotten around to doing it. So I do primarily just click, or I will tab around a bit before I realize that and then I might tab 2 or 3 times and then start clicking. But in general, I just try to have Storm Earth and Fire up, and then if Storm Earth and Fire is up, then I'll just tab, because then if I hit something they already hit, it's really not as big of a deal. So if anyone has any other questions, feel free to keep putting them in. I'm gonna pop over to Discord because there's a very popular question that we've gotten. So I'm gonna answer a question in Discord that is somebody asked, is it worth dropping 5 item level overall to use the 4 set? So that's a lot. 5 average item level is a lot, especially across all of the times. So, or all of the gaps. The item level. How do I word this? The tier bonus for the 2 pieces worth about 25 item levels, but that is spread out across your gear. So if you're changing 1 piece in, you can drop 25 item levels to gain the 2 piece. If you're changing 2 pieces, you can drop 10 on one and 15 on the other, and the 2 piece will still be a bonus. The 4 pieces worth 75 item levels. So if you figure there's 15 or 16 slots, then a 5 average item level drop would be roughly the worth of the 4-piece bonus. So the 4-piece bonus for Windwalkers is strong. It's not quite as strong as other specs. Windwalker kind of got I don't want to say the shaft, but other things, other specs just got stronger. Tier bonuses. Ours is definitely one you want to go for, but yeah, I mean, it's hard to really say. So next question comes from Fifth Art, and it's another question we get constantly, which is it better to equip blank trinket over blank trinket? This one, for example, he's asking about Bloodthirsty Instinct at 880 versus Convergence of Fate at 880, and the answer is pretty much always going to be Simit. It depends on the amount of time that you're simming the fight, as well as the fight length. So it takes about 7 minutes for Convergence of Fate to earn you an extra cast of Storm, Earth, and Fire. So if the fight's longer than that, then an extra cast of Storm, Earth, and Fire is pretty strong. But typically in those choices, BTI is going to be the stronger choice. It's a great proc. Pretty much for its item level, it's just about best in slot. So, yeah, I mean, I use my BTI still, and it's a 880. So I have whatever else I have, an 890 mastery trinket, but I have so much mastery that I'm okay using the BTI. But Bloodthirsty Instinct just has a huge proc rate. It procs seemingly all the time. So that's, your best chance is always to sim it, because that's going to be based on your character. But in general, I would assume that Bloodthirsty Instinct is going to show up as better than Convergence of Fate, since Convergence of Fate was hit so hard by the nerf bat. So next, Ixbio, depending on where you're from, said you weren't around for the discussion at the time. I don't think so. I'll ask any thoughts on alternative openers, specifically ones that aim to save energizing elixir. My thoughts on that are they make my brain hurt. I have always deferred to other people in terms of discussing openers, because it's a rabbit hole that I am nervous to fall down. I know how to set it up. I would have a spreadsheet, and it would be lovely, but it would take a long time, and I would obsess about it way too much. So Ruyi was always kind of the one, and Panda and a couple other people were always the one that I really deferred to in terms of openers. it's just something that I get the reasoning behind it, but in general, I would assume in most situations you would not want to delay something like energizing elixir, just because the more you delay anything, the greater the risk of missing a cast later on. So I don't know that for sure because openers are not my thing. But there's a lot of weird thought processes that go into openers that maybe don't, align with anything else. I've always just used the opening with energizing elixir in it, and stuff like that. So that's just been my way of opening fights and how I'm comfortable. It may not be the best, but it's the one that I've kind of always used. So I unfortunately cannot comment too much on any idea about alternative openers. My suggestion would be to look at other top players, Zess, Mega, if you can still find any of his logs. Anyone who is rating at a high level, and just see their cast sequence at the beginning of a fight. You're going to be able to see, anything about if they're doing anything differently from anybody else. That's kind of the way that openers have for a long time been developed. Hey, so and so opens with this buttons that are different from the ones you're telling us, and we're like, oh yeah, I guess that maybe that would work. Openers are somewhat complicated, and when you start tossing in things like cooldown reduction, where a popular question and a popular issue we get with cooldowns and the opener is that people can't always necessarily fit Whirling Dragon Punch in the opener, or before having to use another Rising Sun Kick. So that's a somewhat difficult thing because what do you tell you? How do you tell somebody? There really just isn't a one size that fits all. If you don't have the haste or whatever to fit that extra Whirling Dragon Punch in, then yeah, you're not going to be, you're going to have to use something else before that to use your Whirling Dragon Punch. So there's a lot of, I don't want to say flexibility because there is mathematically a better decision. I just haven't spent the time to really pour into the math and stuff like that. It's something that I know how to do, but just never really, like I said, kind of want to fall down that rabbit hole of intense thinking. So we're doing Croesus, so I don't want to duck away to take another question, but that's kind of why I made my answer to that question much more lengthy probably than it needed to be. So hopefully that answers it. I've just always really been nervous about openers because people tend to take a lot of what I say as kind of a law, or and I don't want to mess it up. So if you have any other if anyone has any questions, then like I said, feel free to put them in Twitch chat. If not, I will. If you run out of questions, then I will just finish this alt run at some point. All right, so there's a discussion. Sorry, people are talking in Discord, making jokes. Somebody mentioned Beotorch. Beotorch was a pet project from somebody. Is it better? It's got a socket in it. Chest piece. Raise your hand if you're going to be simming more. 20 item levels. That's probably not going to be worth it. But I will sim it. For anyone who's watching, a great add-on that I discovered and somebody linked, possibly in Discord, is called Sim Permut, as in like permutations, Sim Permute. But basically, you click it and you tell it what combination what combination of things that you want, and then you just hit generate. It generates the profile for you. So if I want to generate mind rend, if I want to see what rings I should use, it will generate every copy. I don't know why it does base, but it will generate every copy of gear combination that you have in your bag. So it becomes a very easy thing to just kind of do. I've done it. I just pulled up SimCraft, copy that in after you get an item. So I definitely. I can't go up there. I definitely think anyone who wants to kind of save some time with simming should do that. But yeah, but BioTorch it was a pet project by someone who was working a lot on SimCraft, and he stopped, but I believe someone else has picked it up. Basically, it simmed your character for you for stat weight, so you could just kind of put in your character, and it told you what it told you what stat weights and stuff you are. Kind of saved time for anyone who maybe was a little bit nervous about using SimCraft. But honestly, if you're nervous about using SimCraft, there's dozens and dozens of guides out there. So I definitely recommend you just checking those out. None of these are working. Yeah, I mean, there's a guide on my site. There's a guide on... there's tons of guides on YouTube all over the place. So, yeah, BioTorch is useful, provided it is. Actually, I'll pull it up. BioTorch.com. Yeah, I mean, huh? The last 3 people were all monks. Wonder how many of you are all listening to me right now. Yeah, the next thing I do plan on doing eventually is a video about my spreadsheet that I've been working on, because I'm just too much of a scaredy cat to release it to the general public. So people who have been patrons of Walk in the Wind have had access to it to help me kind of test it. But it's far from perfect, and it's not meant to replace SimCraft. Alright, I would like to go up. No, not ready. There we go. This is not where I want to be. This is where I want to be. Okay. Thankfully, my guild knows I'm doing a Q&A. Any other questions for me in chat? I will answer whatever. So, now is your chance. We are approaching the 30-minute mark for this Q&A, so I don't want to have it gone too long. Alright, I will talk my way through how terrible I am at Elisand. How about that? I hate this boss. Hate Elisand. I hate it. I should have got her. For God's sakes, man. I just never seem to live. I always seem to make a wrong choice somewhere. Yep. Like that. Why not channel Fist of Fury when you know she's going to be running away? Ignoring mechanics. Oh, yeah, there you go. Let's stand in the slow. Really show that I'm paying attention. God. Yeah, there you go. Let's channel Fist of Fury while she's nowhere to be found. Boom. Yeah, don't do that on Mythic or Heroic. I tried that the other day, and I died. So, don't do that, please. Let's get my... It's amazing how how much I need my raid leaders calling stuff out. I don't have any idea what goes on in these fights. Oh, this is gonna be bad. That's why we always save cooldowns, boys and girls. Save your defensives. Because that would have been bad. Alright. Let's just use Storm, Earth, and Fire, because why not? We don't want it to go to waste, right? Right. Sure, guys, let's not stack them up. It's a great idea. I love Whirling Dragon Punch, except when it gets me killed. Which it totally did on Crosis progression. So did my daughter, though, so can't really complain. She decided to press the space bar right as I rolled to the edge, and I went flying off. There's a video about it somewhere. I'm not gonna worry about it. Alright. This is happening. Let's hop into Twitch chat. See any questions? XBO, can we discuss the viability of range walking / heal walking? I don't know what heal walking is, but range walking was my idea, so back off. That's all I'm saying about that. For anyone who doesn't know, or maybe I'm even misinterpreting what you mean by range walking, when Alpha first came out, Blizzard asked for any suggestions that people had, and I suggested that Windwalkers, after they announced that Survival Hunters were going to be moving to Melee, I suggested that Windwalkers should move to range. I suggested that we use the Storm, Earth, and Fire mechanic to cast it on our targets, which would allow us to stand at range, and we would basically shadow box. Which, for anyone who doesn't know what shadow boxing is, it's basically boxing with an invisible person. So you would basically cast all your abilities from range and stuff like that. It would work just like Storm, Earth, and Fire. You could have multiple Storm, Earth, and Fire targets, or out on different targets, so it would be the same as currently. But you'd be able to stand at range. So I don't know if that's what you're talking about, but it was my idea. I came up with it, so back off. Somewhere in the archives of the Blizzard suggestions is a suggestion from me about range walking. Because I thought, if any melee could go range, it would have to be Windwalkers. We could be channeling the winds at our enemies. It fits. It fits, kinda. Not really, but it fits. So if anyone else has any other questions, get them in the Twitch chat, because when this alt raid is over, I'm going to sleep as I sit on Storm, Earth, and Fire. This is probably just going to be... Oh boy. No, just as I went there. Oh my god. How people are talking in Discord about the stuff that I'm talking about in chat. Just talk in chat so I can be a part of it, guys. Don't leave me out, man. Yeah, what was mentioned in Discord was Transcendence, and I do not use Transcendence anywhere near as often as I should. As evidenced by the fact that I just put it facing a direction so that when I used it, I was facing backwards. So that just goes to show you how practiced I am with Transcendence. And Elisand, this speed buff speeds up things. You really have to, if you're a button spammer, you really have to consider not be buttony spammy. I'm sure my Guildmaster right now is telling me where I should go, but oh well. Sorry, I'm not paying any attention. Hopefully I don't wipe this. I hate this time dilation mechanic. It's just the worst. I am totally going to set myself for Ellison progression on Mythic. I don't want to do it. Although I probably would be better if I just used Zuin. It's one of the few fights that Zuin can actually be useful on. Let's go fast. Alright, let's stand in stuff. To Juan. I lived. Inner peace. Sweet. What other relic is it? Coalescing Mist? I don't know how good that is. Obsidian Fists. I don't think that's useful. Yeah. Alright. Gul'dan. And since Blizzard has yet to hear my calls and my cries about Storm, Earth, and Fire resetting... Wait, where am I going? It is not resetting. Oh! The quest thing, I forgot about the quest thing. That's why I could portal all over the place. I didn't used to have to need to worry about portals. Now you're thinking with portals. Yeah, I'm not going to podcast this part. I'll podcast my YouTube. Or, no, maybe I won't. When was the last time I did a podcast? Anybody? Bueller. The tier list. What was that, last week? Yeah, okay. I'll do a podcast later this week. I just need to think about what to do it with. Let the end game begin. He has 3.0 G. What's G? Gazillion? He has 3.0 G gazillion elf. Yes, we have a question. So Hawkjanner asked, he said, so earlier when you showed your stats it was mostly all mastery and crit and no verse, but on the website it said that balance stats are more verse than crit and more mastery than crit. Can you explain that? Yes, I'm lazy. And I have not regemmed or re-enchanted, even though I probably should. So since you asked, I will run my character with no enchants, and I will sim. But when in doubt, just put mastery on it. Biggest problem is I've been running low on some of this stuff. The frickin' dust. Running low on that. And all of a sudden a lot of my gold disappeared. So watch me not save anything because I'm impatient. Boom. Yeah, watch me drop my hit combo a bunch of times. I'm going to stand in it and take some Felifuse because it kicks my ass on Mythic, so... Or on Heroic. Let's get Storm, Earth, and Fire up now. Of course, I don't have a tag from Gul'dan. Oh man, if Flex was not on me this time. Wahoo! Wahoo for school! I actually enjoy Gul'dan immensely once you're out of this initial phase, because Fel Iflux is the worst mechanic in the game right now. I'll just use that because I wasn't paying attention. I'm sure I just delayed it. I want to go fast. Let's keep up that hit combo. So Hawk Channel with the follow-up. Um, the answer is you should always follow what I put on the site, even if I don't. I don't keep any secret information to myself, even though some guide writers who shall not be named do so. I am not one of them. So even if I don't follow what's on the site, you should follow what's on the site. And really on the site it should say to sim your character. That is going to be the best bet. There's no ads? Oh yeah. Yeah, drop dead combo. It's time dilation. But yeah, I should. I mean, like I said, I should probably be running with more versatility. When versatility was changed in 7.15, when all the stat conversions were changed, versatility dropped quite a bit in terms of losing ground. But the fact that it's a 10k gap between my crit and my verse is probably, or my mastery and verse, and a 8,500 gap between my crit and verse is probably too much. But in general, you should have more. You want to have more mastery than crit, and more crit than verse. So I mean, it really, the difference is going to be minor. Stats do not matter as much as some people seem to claim they do. A lot of people are just using them to look for excuses. But stats do not matter as much as people would like them, like to be able to blame. So the fact that I have, if I drop all of my mastery gems and enchants for versatility, maybe I'll gain 0.1%, or something like that. Like, it's going to be relatively minor. It's going to be, less than 1%, which you will never notice in the real game. So most of the time it's just playing on the fly, and I'm not going to run sims in the middle of a raid, even though I sometimes do. But that's because I have the CPU to do it, or if we're on a break or something. But in general, you can't go wrong with just putting mastery on it. Really, the bigger problem is not that I have so much mastery; it's that I have so much crit. If I could drop crit for crit for versatility, that would probably be best. Dropping mastery for versatility is unlikely to be the preferred way to go, because mastery is still very strong. But I do, of course, have the 4-piece as well, so like right now with the 4-piece rolling, I have 12,000 mastery, which is a bit high. According to my personal spreadsheet, which I know at least works pretty well for single target, not quite as well for AoE, but I'm at the point where verse is ahead of mastery by a very small margin, but it's very small. But I'll run. I just ran all the stat weights. Every week I run my stat weights for my character, but I run them for everything. If you look at the tooltip, I have a stat weight for each. Oh, sorry, I didn't leave it up that long. I'll do it at the end. But I have a stat weight for each slot, because really if you're going to use stat weights, that's what you need to do. You have to have a stat weight for each slot, or else you're not really using it correctly. I sim with a stat weight for each slot because if I'm going to compare something, if I want to compare two wrists using stat weights, I need to compare them with that slot as 0. It's still not perfect because the stat weights are for a much smaller portion of stats that I would be adding, but it's really just kind of the best thing we got. So that's why every week, unless I really don't get any additional gear, I run my entire character and get stat weights for single target 300 seconds with a 50% fight variance, just because that way I don't have to run multiple. But yeah, and it helps kind of smooth out haste weirdness. So I'll show you pawn in a second, but I do use pawn, but I use it in a somewhat special and unique way, because it's not really the greatest add-on. One day someone will will create an add-on that does what you need to do, but that day is not today, unfortunately. Come on, Goldan. Get over here. If you hear any static, it's the heater. It's not really static, it's steam coming out of the vent. Because my computer's in the basement. Because I have a tiny house. Come on. Time to die. So if anyone has any other questions, now would be the time to get them into Twitch chat so that I can answer them as soon as we're done here. Because when I'm done answering questions after this, then I'm going to bed. I haven't been feeling well. Like I said at the beginning of this cast, kids at school lots of kids at school are sick. All right. Let's see. What is my favorite mechanical pencil? The answer is Ticonderoga. They make a nice mechanical pencil that looks like their normal pencil. It's just got a little clicker on the side. But I always like it. My problem with mechanical pencils is that the eraser comes out. So that's really the biggest issue. Is that I find that because some of them are designed for the eraser to come out so that you can put the lead in. The eraser, if you're erasing a lot, or some people erase hard, like I tend to write very hard, so if I erase, I tend to erase hard, and then the eraser just comes flying out. But Ticonderoga, I feel, makes just the best pencils overall. I don't think anyone can really question that. Realistically, who makes better pencils than Ticonderoga? Let's think about it here. What else? Science Scale said, second time seeing you stream, I should do it more often. I would, but I have a job, a wife, a baby, who walked for the first time the other day, which was fantastic. But I only raid 7 hours a week, plus the occasional alt raid on Sunday, so kind of the hallmark of my guild is that we don't play very often, but which is largely why I'm at 45 artifact power, because I don't play as much. I spend a lot of time on Discord because I can sit on the couch with my wife and talk on Discord, or do whatever, and I spend a lot of time on the site. So if I wasn't doing the site, then I would definitely be at 54, but you guys are ravenous with your questions. Which, by the way, if anyone has any other examples of other sites that are like mine, I'd love to see them. No one ever seems to answer me. All the other ones are like, How to Priest or Altered Time. Like, they're all like forums. Like, I cannot believe that I'm genuinely the only site that is devoted to a single spec besides Ashley's Misty Tea House. So if anyone knows of anything else, that'd be great. Hawk Janitor, another question on normal Crosis. I'm in 95th percentile, but on Heroic my damage drops a significant amount. Could be fight timing. It could be the fact that as you go up, well, if you're talking about your damage dropping, I don't know. Beside the fact that you just might have to handle more mechanics. You can't just ignore mechanics quite as easily. But in terms of what was I doing? In terms of percentiles, you're just playing higher. You're playing against the higher quality, better geared players. But like people said in chat, if you have any logs or something, then by all means, upload them. You can send them to checkmywow.com, which is always kind of the way we start people in Discord. But if you upload them to checkmywow.com, it'll tell you, especially on a fight like Crosis, where it's primarily single target. You really can get away with maximizing a lot of your abilities and not missing out on a lot of cooldowns. So, yeah. So, any other questions at all? I answered a mechanical pencil question, so feel free. And I found out I have a 2-hour delay tomorrow, so I gotta go to school. And well, at least I can get to sleep in. Storm, Earth, and Lava. Bink had one. Is this Bink's? No. This isn't Bink's, right? Slenderman. This is different from Bink's. Is it? Yeah. Alright, well, if that looks like it is the last of our questions, then I will wrap up this this Q&A. Thank you for hanging out and answering questions. Thank you for anyone who is watching through YouTube or Twitch. I've been at this for almost 2 hours again. I always tend to go longer than I'd like. Oh, a quick science scales. You bring up an excellent question asking about legendaries. Legendaries, last week we did a very long and detailed, Panda and I did a very long and detailed post about legendaries, and there's a video on YouTube. It's saved in Twitch. I posted it on the site. So we did a tier list and discussed the legendaries at length. So if you have questions about legendaries, I definitely suggest checking that out because some of them have uses, others, at times others really don't. So like I said, I'll wrap this up. So hopefully it's answered more questions than it created. As always, if you want to support walkingthewind.com, you can do so through Patreon and PayPal, and I'll put links on the YouTube video at least. We also did a video guide about my UI and kind of my version of a UI guide with another lovely PowerPoint, so I recommend checking that as well as some of the other video guides that I've started doing. They were something that were very much requested, and I was nervous because it requires a lot of time. And I was, realistically, I was nervous about the amount of time spent compared to what additional income it would bring. So if you like the content I provide, please support. Let me know through your wallets that you enjoy what I'm doing, so I keep doing it as long as I can. So thank you for listening or watching, and have a good night.